Crime and Punishment was written by Fyodor Dostoevsky in 1866. His writing is often described as more psychologically and philosophically analytical than artistic. In his youth, Dostoevsky was politically far left and went to a prison camp in Siberia for being involved in the Pracheshevsky Circle. After returning to St. Petersburg, he reverted to a more conservative viewpoint, criticizing Western philosophy and turning towards a more religious perspective. At this time, Russian society saw a rise in populism, Marxism, anarchy, and nihilism, as well as conflicting ideas about westernization and industrialization. Dostoevsky does not shy away from sharing his philosophies in Crime and Punishment. Crime and Punishment is structured much like a three-act play. Raskolnikov commits a crime, he's nervous about getting caught, and a bunch of stuff happens, then he is punished.
The protagonist of the novel, Raskolnikov, is a poor university student living in St. Petersburg, the capital of Russia. The beginning of the novel provides us a glimpse into the desperate and horrible condition in which he lives, indicating that Raskolnikov lives in a garret which is more like a cupboard than a room. Despite this, Raskolnikov is hopelessly indebted to his landlady. His inability to pay rent and consciousness of the extreme poverty in which he lives render him irritable, depressed, and isolated character who is afraid of meeting his landlady and disinclined toward meeting anyone in general. Raskolnikov harbors a bitter hatred, repulsion, and contempt for Alyona Ivanovna, the old pawnbroker who always gives him significantly less money than his items are worth. The impulsive idea of taking a hideous action of revenge on this old woman frequently emerged in Raskolnikov's mind, but it always fills him with horror, so that he quickly abandons such an attempt as unreasonable and impossible. On an ordinary evening, when he was having a cup of tea at a local tavern, Raskolnikov overheard a conversation between a student and a young officer sitting close by. Raskolnikov was particularly impressed and inspired by the conversation when he heard the student say that he would kill the senseless, worthless, spiteful, alien, horrid old pawnbroker because she represents the social injustice and corruption of Imperial Russia. In this way, her money can be used to save the life of countless poor, starving, and suffering Russian civilians. Such an action coincides so perfectly with Raskolnikov's thoughts lately that he quickly resolved in mind to murder the old pawnbroker, no longer feeling such an action to be immoral. On the following day, Raskolnikov took an axe and headed to the old pawnbroker's apartment. Finding the old woman alone in her room, he brutally murdered her and managed to escape from the apartment unnoticed by anyone passing by.
Here's Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov.
Sonia starts to pressure Raskolnikov to turn himself in, and he ends up doing just that. He is sentenced to 8 years in prison in Siberia, and Sonia decides to follow him because of her submissive personality and devotion towards Raskolnikov. Once in Siberia, Sonia is loved by everyone around her except for Raskolnikov. He's rude to her and he doesn't acknowledge her presence. Later, he gets sick and is taken to the hospital. He gets out, and guess who's there to greet him? Sonia. Dostoevsky shows the power that love has through Raskolnikov's personality. He says that love is so strong that it consumes you at your most vulnerable moments and causes you to break and confess how you really feel. And we see this when Raskolnikov ends up doing exactly that to Sonia. He tells Sonia that after he gets out of prison, they'll get married and live a happy life.
This is a load of barnacles.